Welcome. This is Breaking New Ground, where we look at housing in South Africa and how it affects us. I'm Eric Mian. Today we're going to take a look at in-situ upgrades. Now, if in-situ sounds like Latin to you, that's because it is, and it means in situation. In a nutshell, in-situ upgrades refers to informal settlements where the Department of Housing has to go and cater for people's housing needs without moving those people. This could happen because there is no other available land to move the people to, or because for some other important reason the people could not be moved. That's the phrase in situ, in situation upgrades. We are in Tamborville today, in Josie's East Rand. For me, it's a real privilege to be here because this is the resting place of none other than the great, longest-serving leader of the ANC, Dr. Oliver Reginald Tambo, whose leadership qualities and humility touched millions of lives. Dr. Tambo would indeed be very proud of the housing developments here. Take a look at this.
Formerly established in 1990, Tamborville is today home to over 15,000 people living in over 1,000 fully serviced homes with running water and electricity. It started out as a small informal settlement and is a victory for its community who, through determination and united action, declared the vacant land their own. Their struggle paid off, ensuring better living conditions and a home close to job opportunities in the surrounding industrial areas.
Internationally, in-situ upgrading of informal settlements really refers to improving the lives of informal settlement dwellers where they live. And that starts off with securing their tenure, which is preventing or taking away the risk of eviction, and then dealing with other risks such as health risks by improving the sanitation, providing water, improving the shelter.
Igama lami nguBrenda Maseko. Ngihlala la eWattville, kula ngikhulele khona, ngina 40 years. La ngikhona kagogo wami, kula ngazalelwa khona. And besiyifamily eningi la ekhaya. Ugogo wami bekanabantwana bakhe abayi 13 to 14. And then izizukulu besiyi more than 8. So sonke sikhulele la. Until ugogo decide ukwakha ama-room lanka ngaphandle ukuthi at least kube khona ispace sabanye abantu ukuthi bathole indawo yokulala ngoba besilala kabuhlungu. Ebekade ngingakuthandi ngokuhlala ngaphansi kwalempilo besiphila kuyo ukuthi mangabe ufuna ukugeza awukhona ukugeza mhlawumbe omunye umuntu uyageza mhlawumbe amabhavu ayi2 okugeza so mele ukuthi ulinde lo munye acede mawusathi usalindile omunye ayithatha futhi ibhavu uyageza so uba late la ufuna ukuya khona ufuna ukuya endlini encane awukhona khona usendlini encane mhlawumbe uzutholakala ukuthi mele uzibambe and akukho right. So fani ukuthi masihlala siba ifamily ekahle like sithole indawo.
His Breaking New Ground starts off with this premise that there was a problem with the first decade of RDP housing delivery in that they are very standardized, they're out there on the urban periphery, far away from workplaces, whereas a lot of people living in informal settlements are actually located in a good position in relation to their own livelihoods. And therefore the introduction of informal settlement upgrading and Breaking New Ground is really about centering any housing intervention around people's livelihoods and allowing them to improve their lives where they already live.
Ukuzwa kwami indawo le yaseTambo. Indawo yaseTambo uyaqala ukusungulwa ngo-1991 lapho. Kodwa kwaqala ngokuthi kutoyitoyo iqala. Kutoyitoyele isiganga besihlezi singasebenzi. So abantu base-Wattville bayitoyitoyela le ndawo leyana. Yasungulwa abantu base-CRC. Abanjengabo-But AB kwabayibo-ke abayisungula le ndawo until yaphasa ngabo-91-92 njengoba sesiyithola indawo lapho.
Mother to 2 school-going children, Brenda's dream of owning a home became a reality when she moved into her government-built home, which was resetted on the same stand as her shack. Number 304, Ebinyalunga Street.
Izindlu lezi zakhiwe 2006 and nge-24 zika-December 2006 bengena la endlini.
The benefit is that the households can continue with their livelihoods, they can continue with their community organization, their social networks, and all of those things are incredibly important if one looks at poverty. Disrupting all of that uprooting it as a community and moving them elsewhere is really has a big impact on people's poverty, and usually to the detriment. So one of the big benefits of in situ upgrading is that it has a big potential in alleviating poverty.
Njengoba bukuyi-24 zika-December, soke kwaba intokozo enkulu kimi, and as a present futhi njengoba ku-December kanje. Kushuthi ngathola i-present enye ngiphinde ngikhohlwe engayiphiwa ugovernment ukuthi asakhele izindlu. So ngajabula kakhulu, and ngiyazi ukuthi kuyoba ikusasa labantwana nezizukulu kanjalo, kuzoba ikhaya elifudumele ngendaba nje yokuthi sathola usizo ku-government ngoba besingakhulu. Engingakujabulela njengoba ugovernment akwazile ukuthi asixhase ukuthi asicalele izindlu, ukuthi nami ngikwazi ukufaka isandla lendlu angiphe yona ngingalindi yena ukuthi azoyiqhubekisa. Nami ngibonise ukuthi ngiyayithanda le ndlu, ngiyimele, uyabona, ngoba bengingakhoni ukuyakha, kodwa manje ungakhele yona. So ngiqhubeka la ugovernment agcine khona. And engakuthanda futhi ukuthi ugovernment angakwenza ukuthi kukhona abanye abafana nami abakade bafana nami before abanganayo indawo yokuhlala. Ngicela ukuthi angagcini kithi, abayenzele nabo, baningi baswele nabo alula isandla ahambe abayenzela nabo bathola izindlu njengathi. Ngiyabonga lapho.
I think it's wonderful that there is a national program such as this one on television that's trying to promote Breaking New Ground and all its different programs. I think it could be a starting point for a mind shift that needs to happen among the public, but also among government officials. But I think it has to go a lot further than that. And I think Department of Housing has to engage very actively with its provinces and through the provinces with its municipalities to get this program implemented, not as a last resort, but as the way to deal with informal settlements.
Welcome back, and thank you for watching Breaking New Ground. For our panel discussion today, we've chosen what I think is a fantastic venue, the Adelaide Tambo Development Center, where young people are trained to be productive citizens. And to discuss in situ upgrades with me today are Musa Masita, who is the manager, project implementation Ekurhuleni in the housing department. We have Abi Nyalunga, who is a community leader here. Also had a street named after him, he's been so good. We have Robert van Dijk, who's executive manager, project implementation housing in Ekurhuleni. And of course, Brenda Masego, welcome on. Let me start with you, Robert. What is the policy that informed in situ upgrades?
In situ upgrades are not the ideal development situation, but in terms of policy, they are informed obviously by the Breaking New Grounds, as announced by Minister Sisulu in 2004 and launched at that point in time. But then also in terms of the housing code, in particular the revision of Chapter 12 of the housing code that's currently taking place.
When you say they're not the ideal thing, what do you mean? What makes them not ideal?
In terms of not being ideal, the settlement is informal. So a group or person decides to settle on a portion of land, but it might not be conducive to settlement.
Abi, do you think the government is going about it the right way in terms of checking whether or not people qualify for in situ upgrades?
It is a painful virtual process, but it is a necessary pain, because ultimately people have to upgrade an area where they actually live in. And one of the very important things which it addresses is the ownership and upgrading of the area. And for us as a community and community leaders, we see in situ what you call upgrading as part of the upgrading and improving the quality of life, as well as the value of the properties within the particular area.
But Robert, I mean, at its most difficult, you're actually encouraging people to squat in places because the government will just come and upgrade the place.
I think that would be an incorrect statement.
What would make it incorrect? I mean, if I didn't have a place to stay and I heard that the government upgrades wherever you are, well, why not go there, squat, and see if they can upgrade?
As I mentioned, it's not an ideal situation. Firstly, in terms of just call it an informal layout, is usually not conducive to sound town planning practices. But then, more importantly so, is the actual locality of the settlement, the geophysical conditions, as I mentioned before, and then also the actual legal processes that one has to go through before you eventually get a township establishment which is legalized and formalized through proclamation. I think one would definitely not encourage people to settle in an informal scenario.
So
it is a difficult...
That's basically what you'd rather no one settled informally anyway, as government. Would that be the ideal situation?
Government does not encourage people to settle wherever they want, but I think we should look at it in the sense that government is faced with a huge challenge in terms of land, especially for residentials within our townships. And the best route or the alternative would be upgrading where people are situated. And as we go through that process, we are able to inform beneficiaries or communities of all the various programs that are in government. For instance, if you do not qualify, government has got what we call social housing. We would be able to say to you, you would not qualify for a subsidy house, but here are various alternatives that you could use and that government are using to accommodate people that do not qualify.
So, straight yes or no, you'd rather people didn't settle informally?
As Robert has said, it's not the ideal situation.
It's not the ideal. So why did you do it, Brenda? Why did you settle informally somewhere? Government doesn't want it. It seems to be quite a hassle. I mean, why did you do it?
Kusho ukuthi okokuqala azange sihlale nje kufanele ukuthi size sitoyitoye ukuze sithole le ndawo azange sizele
benitoyitoyiswa yini
ngoba besihlele emalokishini ndesibaningi angisho like mina ngithi besibaningi kakhulu
bekungekho
besinganandawo kulala and kwatholakala ukuthi kuze kufonywe le WCRC yokuthi makulwele le khona isigange ngale move singayenzi next so kulwele sona ukuthi sizothola indawo kuhlala.
But this ganga sense loot. This ganga sense loot.
The building of sheds came in as a temporary measure.
Okay.
The initial stand of communities was that we want a piece of land where we can build a decent house. I can challenge you today, you go into Tamborville, you look at the area, 70% of the houses that are built there are actually brick and mortar houses.
But Brenda, I believe when the in-situ upgrading happened, you chose to move to an RDP house as opposed to stay in the informal settlement as it was upgraded. Is that correct?
Azange size chief to should be sikhona same charity.
Okay.
Yeah, kwakhiwa siluke sikhona la phakathi.
Okay, bakhe inhleli
la besihleli khona imkhukhwini ethu kushuthi umuntu nomuntu la hleli khona.
Yeah.
Bekazanga chiefdwe.
Okay. Yeah, so that is proper in situ.
Yeah, kushuthi yaphasiswa sihleli lapho indawo iphasisiwe.
So Musa, just what happens in an in situ upgrade?
In case of Tamborville, I must highlight what we are currently doing is we are using what we call consolidation subsidy. The reason being, the stands were serviced 13 years ago.
Just break down service. When you say you're servicing a stand, what does that mean?
We put in water, we put in sewer, we put also sanitation, meaning the toilets.
Okay.
Those are the services that we are talking about.
So that will be the basic upgrade. What's the government aiming at in terms of timing?
Ideally, once services are in place, it would be ideal that we start constructing houses. The reason being, with that gap, beneficiaries sell houses, beneficiaries die, and that creates problems again or challenges in at the later stage. So ideally, once services are installed,
so even government wants it to move a bit quicker.
Yes.
Okay. AB?
Yeah, absolutely. We actually want to see a situation where the implementation takes place as soon as possible, because as Musa indicates, people they move, and there are also economic factors. People get unemployed, and then you have an influx. I mean, they use their yards as a means of income when a number of subtenants come into play, which makes it very difficult again to implement the in-situ upgrading. Then the other factor is that as you delay, you're then sitting with old data, wherein some people who did not qualify suddenly qualify, and those who qualify do not actually qualify. You have to keep on updating.
You start again.
You start again afresh.
So now you've put in services. What follows? What's next?
As Ikuruleni as well, we felt government said people should participate and people should add value, and we felt If somebody has already built a brick structure, somebody has added value, and we cannot come and break such houses. But what we have done as Ikuruleni Housing, we have drafted a policy, proposed it to Gauteng Department of Housing, whereby we are encouraging the enhancement of the existing houses. What do I mean by that? We would go to an existing house and say, you have already built a structure. Wouldn't it be nice to put tiles, to put the tiling roof? What would add value to your house? In that way, it's government seen in partnership with the community.
On that note, we're going to take a short break. Stay with us. It's getting very interesting. This is Breaking New Ground. Welcome back. Before we carry on with our discussion, I'd like to share with you some of the creativity that people bring to the RDP houses. With just a little imagination and some work, we see people turn simple houses into wonderful homes that are unique and beautiful. Here's one such house right here in Tamborville.
My name is Matsepo Matona. I live here at number 302 Ebinyalunga, Tamborville, Wattville. I live here with my husband and 2 children, Vesejo and Kagiso. The improvements that I've made, I've plastered the walls, fitted the kitchen unit, and did the flooring and electricity, because we didn't have electricity and they didn't plaster the walls. Most things you had to do yourself. By putting on a kitchen unit, it helped me a lot, because now I can cook. I have a 4-plate stove. Before I used only a 1-plate, and it was very difficult and it was untidy because everything was exposed. It was difficult washing dishes. It was just not neat. We started by measuring our kitchen and came up with a design that will fit this particular size. To fit the kitchen, it took about 3 weeks. My friends and neighbors are very happy for me because the kitchen is very beautiful. I also love it, and it makes the house look neat. The wall is our latest project, where we've put up the wall because we have children, and it's much safer when they're playing inside when there's a wall. And we still have a lot to do. We have to paint it and fix it a little bit. We got builders and bought material, and they were for 2 months, and so at least for bana. And it has improved the value of the house, I think, also. We've done all these things by supporting each other, my husband and I, by saving money and by just the love of loving beautiful things.
Inspirational. It's amazing how inventive South Africans can be when we set our minds to it. Now, you'll remember, just before we took a break, Brenda had a question for Umusa, and it has to do with how when people are in a shack, they actually have their electrical meters and stuff, but when they have to move, it kind of costs them money or something. Is that correct?
That is actually catered for within the project, within our project budget. The way we run our projects, especially the in-situ projects, we find it very important to involve community, and we do thorough consultations.
Kusho ukuthi mayelana nezindlu nesonke into eyenzwa boBhuti ukuthi bafuna izindlu zibe zakhiwe kanjani. Sonke Tambo.
Okay, and aboBhuti bakhuluma
yenzwa aboBhuti ukuthi manje isikhathi pass i-project yezindlu, then kwasuka discusswa ukuthi izindlu ezowakhiwa kuzowakhiwa izindlu ezinjani.
Okay.
Because ama-budget onyaka ngoba basichazela ukuthi ayadifa. So izindlu zethu angeke zifane because kulo nyaka lo ezabanye zizoba so, then unyaka ulandelayo bona sebanemali ethe caca so izindlu zabo nabo zoba ngconywana kunalezi last year.
Okay. Tell me about the subsidy. How does that work in situ upgrades?
In order for individuals to qualify for a subsidy, there's a criteria that is being used. Whether you're South African, whether you have dependents, it's a list of a number. You go through that. If you qualify, then it means you would have a grant. That's how it works.
Okay. Robert, my question is, do people only qualify for RDP houses in situ upgrading, or do they qualify for other kinds of housing? For instance, would you build a block of flats and provide rental stock there? Or
Okay, in the in situ upgrade, it would usually be an RDP house, but in cases where one would have an overspill or cases where you have non-qualifying families, one could have a scenario where other options such as rental stock could eventually be made available. I think we're still in the early years at this point in time in respect of the various other options, and they might not be in the same locality.
okay.
Maybe to add, Eric, on what Robert has said, I'm sure you would understand how cumbersome it would be for government to go out there and implement various programs within one project. Therefore, in Tamborville, we don't call them RDP houses anymore. We call them starter homes, okay. Because as it is said within the BNG, we are not building houses, but we are building communities. Therefore, all I'm trying to highlight is that when we plan as government, we would say, what is ideal for Tamborville as a project? Okay. Therefore, we'll take one route that would cover that whole project. We would not implement PHP. We would not implement community builder program on the next end, because then what does it mean? It means we will not be able to manage that. So Tamborville generally would fall under one project.
And that would be starter homes.
Then we'll build those starter homes.
Well, that's it for today's episode of Breaking New Ground. I hope you have a better understanding of what in situ upgrades mean. Thanks to our panel for taking the time to come and explain. Please join us again next week at the same time, but definitely from a different place. I'm Eric Miani, and from the Breaking New Ground team, thank you for watching.